this review is for the really fantastic and really unique Star Wars Year by Year, a Visual Chronicle. It's published by DK, and it's a very hefty tome. This is the updated edition, but I'll talk more about that later. A wonderfully designed book. As you can see, it comes in this really nice shiny slip cover, and see the parallels. It's just very well designed. And then in the front cover, it also comes with these two prints. One of concept art from the Clone Wars animated series, and then this black and white one of Harrison Ford on set. So in addition to the dozens of Star Wars fiction books that get produced each year, they also try and publish a number of non-fiction books each year as well. And since there are only six, as of the publishing of this book, 6 main Star Wars films, and Star Wars is nearly 40 years old, as you can imagine, it's sometimes hard to come up with new ideas to publish books about, and so sometimes they're very hit and miss, but thankfully this one is very much a hit. So what it is it's a year by year look at the Star Wars franchise. It's really a history of the Star Wars franchise. In fact, it's almost probably more of a celebration of the history of the franchise. And so you go by year, and it tells you what was happening that was related to Star Wars in that year. So this first section is life before Star Wars, so it's in the 60s, which is really great because I didn't expect them to start prior to pre-production on the original trilogy, but this is really great, getting you into the mindset of what George Lucas's movies were before and what was inspiring him at the time, and so that's really fantastic. And also down the bottom throughout the book is sort of historical events that were happening at the time. So Luna 20 lands on the moon, Atari is founded, Jane Fonda tours North Vietnam. So that sort of stuff isn't always related to Star Wars. It's just sort of more to place you in history and tell you what was happening in the world at the time. And so then you get into the original trilogy, 73 to 83. And so this book is just visually such an overload in the best way possible. It kind of is like, and the text is not very in-depth at all, in sort of typical DK style. It's just short paragraphs giving you bits of information, but that actually works well in this book because, like I said, it's so visual. It's kind of like going through this book kind of feels like a sugar high in a way. So you don't want to spend too much time reading. The short sentences and paragraphs are really great because your eyes are just jumping around all over the place because there's so much wonderful stuff to see here. And so this book is a really sort of original idea. This idea of doing a book on the sort of history of a franchise. DK has also published similar year-by-year chronicles for DC Comics and Marvel Comics. But with DC and Marvel producing, a dozen pieces of new material each week throughout the history of the company, whereas Star Wars, like I said, is just the 6 movies. But then this book really shows you how something is, in every month of every year, what was happening was related to Star Wars. Sometimes you can see they might have been a little bit stretched trying to find something related to Star Wars, so they'll include something that's sort of very, very lightly related to Star Wars, but that doesn't happen too often, and it's okay when it does. But it's just, yeah, such an interesting idea to do, and I don't think you could do this sort of book with just any franchise, because there wouldn't be enough information to pad out a book this huge. But Star Wars is not just a franchise; it's an empire, pun intended, and you're really seeing it's just not just the movies, it's everything. It's the toys, it's comics, it's the action figures, it's things relating to industrial light and magic, what some of the actors were doing at various points. It's really a really crazy idea in a way, the idea for this book, behind this book, but it pays off so well. It's not something I would really have ever expected, or haven't really seen, because of course there are plenty of retrospectives on various franchises, but just the way the idea behind this book and the way it was handled and executed is so fantastic. I highly doubt there is any Star Wars fan, no matter how hardcore and dedicated, who will not find a ton of stuff they didn't know before featured in this book. It's really incredible. They really have pulled from every aspect of the franchise and beyond, and there are so many entirely new things to me that I had no idea existed. And I was sort of trying to keep mental notes of what I wanted to go and look up and find out about, and it's very exhaustive. And just visually so stunning, such a great selection of imagery. So this book was originally published in 2010, and then it was updated. That's what this edition is, the updated edition in 2012, to include some new information, I think, just sort of on the Clone Wars animated series and a couple of other things. And then just recently, as of a couple of months ago, they have released another update, which is about 40 pages, and that includes just things like The Force Awakens, a little bit of stuff on Rogue One, Star Wars Rebels, some of the stuff relating to the Disney acquisition, because this one was published before Disney purchased Lucasfilm. So I don't have the 2016 update, but what I have seen from it looks really good. I'm not even a fan of Rogue One at all, and I was worried that was sort of going to make up the most of that update. But when I looked through, it's actually, again, like you're seeing all throughout this, it really is sort of about the whole franchise. So it's not just about Rogue One, it's about all sorts of things, about the upcoming Star Wars stuff at the Disney parks. And so if you don't have either the 2010 or this 2012 version, definitely go for the most recent update in 2016. It adds like 40 pages. It's pretty thick. This one is about 320 pages, so I think the most recent update is about 360 pages, which is pretty hefty. That's the one that I will link to in the description, because it does look really good. I'm so glad they sort of, because this isn't really, this book is not produced in a way similar to a lot of the other Star Wars books by DK, which is really good, because this one's sort of like very overproduced in a way, but I mean that as a compliment, having the slipcover and just being, it's in a slightly different format, more portrait, and it works really well. You can already see as you go through this book, which, like I said, is before the Disney acquisition, that Star Wars and Disney have a pretty well established history. So here's Skywalker Ranch. So say even this section is between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. And there's still just so much stuff. Monkey Island. Like I said, sometimes some of the links they try and draw between Star Wars and other pieces of pop culture are at times a little bit of a stretch, but it's the rest of the book more than makes up for it. And it's especially great, for, I guess, younger Star Wars fans, if I can include myself in that category, because so much of Star Wars' history happened long before many of us were born, so it's really great to sort of get a feel for what was going on at the time these films were being released, what sort of merchandise was being released, what sort of promotional materials, events, things like that. Is really, really great. Lots of things on the expanded universe novels, comics, like I said. Cinefex. And then, as we move into more recent times, video games as well. Okay, so then this is the prequel trilogy. Some stuff from the manga. That looks like Chewbacca's mugshot. That's a nice statue. Is that from... Let's have a look at this. Modesto, California honors hometown hero George Lucas by dedicating a downtown plaza to him, complete with a bronze sculpture depicting two fun-loving American teens reclining on a fender. Lucas's teenage years spent driving around Modesto inspired his first smash hit, American Graffiti. Oakdale sculptor Betty Saletta returns the inspiration in kind with her tribute in the Lucas Plaza. So see, that doesn't really have anything to do with Star Wars strictly. It's just like a really great, additional thing. It's, like I said, I think I said at the start, this wasn't really necessarily a history of the franchise, which obviously it kind of is, but I said it was a celebration of the history, which I think is really appropriate and really great. There are a couple of Star Wars books released around this time that were sort of giving me the impression that maybe they had run out of ideas. Like there was one on trying to link Star Wars to sort of historical events, like in real history, which was definitely a stretch in a lot of places. And then there was another one called Star Wars Frames, which was just pictures from the movie, which I don't like those sort of books at all. And then there was, they started releasing the Star Wars art series, which was nice, but it's really great to have a book like this sort of come out of left field and really, prove that no, there's still a whole ton of information and really great ideas that can be turned into books for this franchise and other franchises. Because sometimes that's the hard thing with being, a big fan of a franchise, as old as this is. As they release more books, you're sort of just getting them for maybe, a couple of pages of new information that they try and entice you with to, milk more money out of you. But this book is just not that at all. It's really very, very nice. There's just so many things that, like here's a Pepsi machine, just the advertising and things like this that I have no idea. Jar Jar's journey. So many great things you're going to learn about the the entire franchise. And I mean, you can look at all of this stuff and sort of be very cynical about the merchandising and marketing and commercialism of Star Wars. And sometimes this book does sort of look like a big toy catalog to get you really excited, but the thing is, I think it's truthful to the actual Star Wars franchise, because anyone who sort of knows a bit about the making of the original trilogy knows how integral merchandising rights were to Lucasfilm, and how that trilogy completely changed what marketing movies, merchandising movies were like. This idea that now is very accepted, to see posters everywhere and characters featured in ads, and slapping a franchise's name and image on everything you can. But at the time, that was not how movies were marketed at all, and this Star Wars really exploded that. And so seeing all this commercial fluff and tchotchke, I think is really honest view of the franchise, and it's just really great fun anyway, just to see. This is like the cereal, and it came with a clone trooper mask, and that's just fun. Star Wars Bounty Hunter on PlayStation 2. I'm not sure how many of you have played that. That was a great game. That really should have, there are not terribly many great Star Wars games, but that was really one. It's a shame they never made a sequel for that. And then the first sort of Clone Wars animated series. See, tons of Yoda everything. Oh. Concept art for General Grievous. Wow, I don't think I've ever seen that image. So see, it really is great. Maybe that's just because I'm unobservant. But yeah, the variety of images is also fantastic. Like behind the scenes images for this. This is people making a model for Utapau, I think. Yep. And then concept art and cartoony art and book covers and magazine covers, and it's like I said, it's just such a wildly fun book to go through for the Star Wars fan. I mean, if you are in any way a fan of this franchise, if you're the fan who has everything, this is really going to be a treat. This is definitely the book to get. The making of Revenge of the Sith. So then this is the Clone Wars and Beyond. And so this book kind of just like really solidified what I already kind of knew about Star Wars. This idea that it really has penetrated all levels of pop culture and society at large, and it really is, I was gonna say, a force to be reckoned with, but I won't, even though I did. But it's just so true. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. Here's some stamps. Who is this art by? Oh, Drew Struzan. Yeah, he's got a really wonderful art book as well that features a lot of Star Wars art. The Making of Star Wars by J.W. Rinsler. That's my favorite making of book of all time. Not just Star Wars, of any. And I haven't done a review on that yet because I'm so intimidated to, because it's just sort of like the perfect art making of book to me. Star Wars pop-up books. Oh, and then Young Indiana Jones. I've never seen that. Look at this. It's just such a great celebration of this franchise. See, and then, this is what I was talking about. This just says, like, Jumper starring Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jackson, blah, 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 and then describes what the movie's about. And, that's not really related to Star Wars, except that it has two of the actors from the film, but, I guess when you're trying to fill up a book this thick, sometimes you need to draw from sort of tangential stuff. Oh, look at this. See, this is I guess this must be like an original clay sculpture of the sculpt for Admiral Akbar's head. I've never seen much behind the scenes stuff for how Lego figures are made by DK Books. Star Wars Encyclopedia. Oh, Cad Bane. He was my favorite character from the Clone Wars. Beautiful concept art. There's Obama with a lightsaber on the White House lawn. So I mean, if that doesn't speak to the prevalence of Star Wars in, society, I don't know what does. This is just such a really, really outstanding book. I'm so impressed with it, and I'm so tempted to shell out to get the 2016 update, just because it really, really is a very unique, special, and extremely well done book.